Yes, you can. And I'm not going to just show one, I'm going to show five.
All right, so let's respond to this guy's claims to the so-called contradictions in the Quran.
So in Surah 20, verse 71, the Pharaoh threatens to crucify his court magicians. What's the problem? Crucifixion wouldn't exist for another 14 to 1500 years. But whoever was writing the Quran didn't know that. They made a mistake.
So in Surah Taha, the word crucify here does not necessitate a cross like this guy's implying. But in Arabic, whenever somebody's claiming to crucify somebody, that just means to kill them by hanging them on a pole, which was done thousands of years ago, including at the time of Moses. So not a contradiction, just a misunderstanding.
The third mistake we see here is in 86:6, where the author of the Quran thinks that the fluid to make a child comes between the backbone and the rib cage.
Now his next claim is a little confusing, but I think he's saying that the Quran is saying that sperm comes from between the backbone and the ribs. But let's just read the verse. This guy conveniently cuts off the verse, but the previous verse says, "Let people or mankind consider what they were created from. They were created from a spurting fluid emerging from between the backbone and the ribs." Now what this verse is recalling back to, emerging from the backbone and the ribs, isn't the fluid, it's mankind. Let me give you an example. If I said, look at Sarah, she picked up a book and started walking through the park. The subject is Sarah, the second subject is book, but the last sentence I'm referring back to the first subject, Sarah. Another example could be, the king received a letter, emerging from the palace, greeting the guests. Now you obviously know that the letter didn't emerge from the palace and greet the guests. So clearly in this sentence, I'm referring back to the king. The same thing what Allah is doing here. He says, let man consider how he was created. He was created from a fluid. Then he goes back to man, emerging from between the backbone and the ribs. And obviously, if you lay somebody down, between the backbone and the ribs is the canal that humans come out of. So no contradiction here, just a misunderstanding again.
Fourth and fifth mistakes are actually in the same story. One is the story itself, which I'll get to, but within the story, chapter 18, verse 86, the Quran says that the sun sets in a spring of murky water. That is a mistake.
The next one I think is the funniest. He says that in the 18th chapter of the Quran, Surah Kahf, that it says that the sun sets in a muddy spring. I think he just didn't want to read the verse. The verse is referring to a guy named Dhul Qarnayn, and it literally says that the sun appeared to him as if it was setting in a muddy spring. Just like if you went to the beach and you saw the sun setting in the beach. Obviously, you're not saying that the sun is literally setting in the beach, but it's appearing to you as if it's setting in the beach.
The story itself in Surah 18 is actually about Alexander the Great. He's called the Dhul Qarnayn, or the two-horned one. As you can see in this depiction of him, you can see one of his horns. There would have been one on each side of his head.
And then the second claim is that Dhul Qarnayn is Alexander the Great, which again is just false. In fact, Alexander the Great is one of the people that Islamic scholars named by name that he is not Dhul Qarnayn. This point is also kind of weak.
There are several mistakes in the Quran all over the place in different areas.
And as you can see, there are not several mistakes. There's a bunch of weak claims that are easily refuted if you actually read the verses.
And so if you're a Muslim watching this, I want to encourage you to do two things. One, look into my claims. See if they're legit.
Yeah, I looked into your claims and confirmed that Islam still stands free from error, alhamdulillah. So I hope this helped clear some misconceptions about the religion, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Assalamu alaikum.